Extraordinary breaking news this morning, Robin. Retired Marine General John Kelly. He was Trump's longest serving chief of staff, and he is speaking out right now with things we have never heard before from someone who has served a president. He says Donald Trump fits the definition of a fascist. He says that Donald Trump praised Adolf Hitler, demeaned American war heroes, calls Donald Trump a man who would govern like a dictator if allowed.
And George, this comes as more billionaires are entering the race, donating millions, including reportedly Bill Gates. Our team is covering both campaigns and all the angles this morning. We're going to start with the latest on the Trump campaign, and Rachel Scott is tracking it from North Carolina. Good morning, Rachel.
Michael, good morning to you. John Kelly was one of Donald Trump's closest advisors, his longest serving chief of staff. And this morning, with just days to go until this election, he is now painting a picture of a former president and Republican nominee who has no regard for the Constitution or rule of law, warning that he would rule as a dictator if he could.
This morning, with the campaign entering its final days, Donald Trump's former chief of staff and retired General John Kelly with a blistering rebuke of the Republican nominee for president, calling him a fascist with no concept for the rule of law or the Constitution.
Certainly, the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
Kelly describing how Trump would praise Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, who orchestrated the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and caused World War II.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things, too.
Kelly's on-the-record first-hand account, following similar reporting in The Atlantic, including a private conversation at the White House, where, according to Kelly, Trump asked why his generals couldn't be more like Hitler's generals.
Well, I tell him that. I said, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good.
The Trump campaign calling that an outrageous lie. Just as the New York Times published their interview with Kelly, Trump was on stage in Greensboro, North Carolina, praising authoritarian leaders like Chinese President Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
He's smart. He's a smart man. He's a fierce man. I get along with him very well. Putin, these are people that are tough people.
Kelly insisting to the Times, if given the chance, Trump would rule as a dictator himself.
Oh, I think he'd love to be. I think he'd love to be just like he was in business. He could tell people to do things and they would do it, and not really bother too much about whether what the legalities were.
Kelly also says Trump often questioned why people would serve the country in uniform, and referred to service members who were injured or killed as losers and suckers multiple times, something the former president has repeatedly denied.
Is not wanting to be seen with amputees that lost their limbs in defense of this country, fighting for every American, to him included, to protect them, but didn't want to be seen with them.
Kelly, a retired 4-star Marine general who spent 45 years in uniform, lost his own son in combat in Afghanistan. He was handpicked by Trump to lead the Department of Homeland Security before serving as his longest chief of staff.
General Kelly will go down in terms of the position of chief of staff, one of the great ever.
He says he made the decision to speak out now after Trump talked about using the military against what he called the enemy within.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
In a statement, the Trump campaign writing, John Kelly has totally beclowned himself, calling the stories fabricated, and adding Trump has always honored the service and sacrifice of all of our military men and women.
More than 19 million Americans have already cast their ballots, participating in early voting. John Kelly insists he is not trying to tell people how to vote, but he is asking this country to consider character over policy, George.
And that all comes from someone who served former President Trump. We're also learning, we have new reporting on who Trump is considering for a second term if he wins.
Yes, George, this is exclusive reporting from our teams here at ABC News. Sources telling us that Judge Eileen Cannon, the federal judge who dismissed the case against the former president for his alleged mishandling of classified documents, is now being considered for the position of Attorney General should Donald Trump win the White House. We are told this is all part of a list put together by one of Donald Trump's closest advisors, Boris Epshteyn. We are also learning that other transition documents also include several other controversial options, including Jeffrey Clark, someone who has pleaded not guilty after being indicted to Georgia for his alleged handling and participation in trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. George, we have reached out to the Trump campaign for comment. They have not gotten back to us, George.
Right, and of course, Judge Cannon has received so much criticism from others in the legal community over those decisions in the Trump cases. Rachel Scott, thanks very much.